What would you do if you woke up one morning and your neighbor's contractor was pouring concrete on your property right in front of you and they just smiled and kept going? I told them to stop right there. They laughed at me. I called the city immediately. They ignored the notice, so I waited. I documented everything. I filed. And when the city showed up with an enforcement order, their structure came down. It came down brick by brick, and every single penny they spent on it was gone. If you've ever had a neighbor who thought your property line was just a suggestion, stay right here because this is how you win. You can fight back and win without throwing a single punch. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. New neighbor war drops every week on HOA Drama Neighbor. Share this with someone who needs to know their rights. Let me paint you a clear picture. I bought my home 7 years ago, worked every single overtime shift, scraped every dollar together, and finally signed the papers on a modest but perfectly positioned lot. It was a corner lot in a quiet suburb. I knew exactly where my property line was. I had the survey documents, I had the deed, I had everything. What I didn't have was a neighbor who respected any of it. His name doesn't really matter. Let's call him Clint. Clint moved in next door about 3 years after I did. And from day one, he had this particular energy. The kind of man who treats boundaries like a game. He'd let his lawn overflow onto mine. His dog would do its business to feet past the fence line. Small things, irritating but manageable. I kept records not because I'm paranoid, but because of my gut. Something in my gut told me Clint was just getting started. And then one Tuesday morning, I will never forget. I looked out my kitchen window and saw 2 workers breaking ground in the corner of my land. I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt it was my land, not the shared easement, not the gray area between our fences. It was my land. It's a corner of my lot where I had planned to eventually build a small shed. I didn't storm out. I want to be completely clear about that. I took a deep breath. I grabbed my survey documents, which I keep in a labeled folder because of that gut feeling, and I walked over calmly. I introduced myself to the workers, explained that I believed they were on my property, and asked if they could pause until we figured this out. They were polite about it. They stopped and called their boss. Clint came out about 10 minutes later. And here's the thing about Clint. He wasn't embarrassed at all. He wasn't apologetic. He came out with this slow, easy smile like I was the one causing the problem. He told me the corner had always been his side and that the fence had just drifted over the years. He actually used the words natural drift, like property lines are something that just wander around. Like the earth itself renegotiated our deed while we were sleeping. I showed him my survey. He shrugged. I told him I needed him to stop construction until we had this property properly assessed by the city. He said, "This will be done by Friday, so don't stress yourself." Then he walked back inside. The workers looked at me. I looked at them, and they started digging again right away on my private property. That was the moment I understood that being right wasn't going to be enough. I was going to have to prove it, document it, and weaponize the system, and I was completely okay with doing exactly that. Step 1. Documentation. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Your phone camera is your most powerful legal weapon. I went back inside, set up my phone on a tripod facing the yard. I began recording on a loop. It was time-stamped and continuous. I photographed the survey stakes. I photographed the construction as it progressed. I photographed Clint's workers carefully every day. I photographed the permits, or rather, the very obvious and conspicuous absence of any posted permits, which was the first domino in a very long chain. Because here's what most people don't realize at all. In most jurisdictions across the United States, any structure above a certain size, like storage sheds, garage extensions, or retaining walls, requires a building permit. You have to apply for it formally. It gets reviewed, and it absolutely, categorically, cannot be approved on land that isn't yours. Clint had skipped this step entirely, either because he genuinely believed the land was his, which was wrong, or maybe he knew it wasn't his and didn't want anyone looking too closely at the project. Either way, the result was the same. It was illegal construction on my property. Step 2. I hired a surveyor. Within 48 hours, I had a licensed professional on site with equipment that doesn't care about feelings or assumptions. The survey was clean, precise, and devastating to Clint's property position. The corner in question sat 2 feet inside my legal property line. Not close, not borderline, not debatable at all. For 2 feet of undeniable, documented, professionally certified trespass on my land. Armed with my surveyor's report, my time-stamped photos, and a written account of every interaction I'd had with Clint, I made 2 calls. The first was to my city's building and safety department. The second call was to a real estate attorney, not because I planned to sue immediately, but because I needed someone to confirm I was executing this correctly. The attorney looked at everything, told me something that felt like the first real breath I'd taken in a week. They built this without a permit on your land. After you explicitly asked them to stop, you have every option available. You have every single option. That phrase sat in my chest like something warm. The city received my complaint with supporting documentation on Thursday. By Monday morning, an officer was assigned. By Wednesday, they'd visited the site. By Thursday, 1 week after I filed, Clint had received an official stop work order and a notice of violation. The structure at this point was about 60% complete. It was a little storage building, maybe 12 by 10 feet, sitting squarely on my land. Clint's response: he posted a note on my door saying that I was being dramatic and that he was going to contest it. He had until a certain date to do so. I noted the date down immediately. I prepared my documentation packet. I wasn't worried because here's what Clint didn't understand. The city doesn't care about drama. The city cares about permits, property lines, and paperwork. And I had all 3. The administrative hearing was a Tuesday morning, 8:15 a.m. in a government building with fluorescent lighting. Clint showed up with a neighbor he'd apparently recruited as a witness, who swore the corner had always looked like Clint's side. The enforcement officer arrived with my survey and my photographs. He had the time-stamp video and the licensed surveyor's certified report. Clint's attorney, yes, he hired one, argued that my survey was one interpretation and requested a second professional opinion. The hearing officer noted that I had already submitted a licensed professional survey, that no counter-survey had been provided, and that the structure in question had been built without any permits. The attorney then argued that the lack of permit was an administrative oversight. The hearing officer noted that whether oversight or not, the structure was built on land that did not belong to Clint. The hearing lasted about 40 minutes. Spoke for maybe 8 of them. I didn't need more. When you have documentation this clean, you don't need eloquence. You just need to present the facts clearly. The hearing officer ruled in my favor on every single point. Clint was ordered to remove the structure at his own expense within 30 days, restore the land to its original condition, and pay a fine. I watched Clint's face during that ruling. I'm not going to pretend it didn't feel great. After months of being dismissed and being called dramatic, there's a particular kind of quiet satisfaction. Watching the system work exactly the way it's supposed to is amazing. Clint waited until day 28 of his 30-day window. I think he was hoping something would change, or that an appeal would materialize. He hoped the city would forget. None of those things happened. On day 28, a small crew showed up at his direction and began tearing down the structure completely. It took the most of the entire day. Every board, every beam, every bag of concrete mix that had gone into that building came back out. When it was done, the corner of my yard looked like rough, scraped earth and some disturbed grass. As part of the official order, Clint was required to restore the ground to pre-construction condition. He did the bare minimum required, brought in some filled dirt, and laid down fresh green sod. It wasn't perfect, but it was done. The corner was mine again, clearly, legally, officially. I had a surveyor return and drive new stakes that were visible, permanent, and completely unmistakable. I took photographs. I updated my property file, and I sent a certified letter to Clint. Not hostile, not gloating, simply stating that I had surveyed the boundaries and attached the coordinates. I expected them to be respected going forward. My attorney reviewed it first. It was precise. It was professional, and it made absolutely clear that I would not hesitate to repeat this process. The total cost to Clint, the materials, the labor, the demolition crew, the attorney fees for the hearing, and the city fine came somewhere north of $9,000 spent on a useless structure. Let's talk about what actually won this case. Not anger, not confrontation, not even the attorney. What won this was documentation started the moment I saw those workers breaking ground on my lot. My instinct was to record first and confront second. That sequence matters enormously. Once you have time-stamped evidence from before construction was complete, you have an airtight legal timeline. The professional survey was the second cornerstone. Never rely on your own measurement when property is in dispute. Your tape measure is not going to hold up in a professional administrative hearing. A licensed surveyor's report with GPS coordinates and certified stamps absolutely will. The cost of a survey is a fraction of the cost of losing a property dispute or losing your actual land. The third element was the permit check. Before I filed anything, I confirmed with the city that no permit had been pulled. That confirmation transformed this into a code enforcement issue immediately. It meant the city was now an active participant in resolving it, not just a passive record keeper. That's a fundamentally different situation, and it works strongly in favor of the rule followers. And the fourth thing I want you to carry out of this video more than anything is this. Stay calm and let the system do the work. Every time I felt the urge to escalate, I reminded myself of my job. My job was to make the record clean and let the process run its course. Clint's job apparently was to be dismissive and assume nothing would happen. The difference in those approaches is clear. You don't have to be a lawyer to protect your property. You don't have to be confrontational. You don't need deep pockets. What you have to have is patience, documentation, and the legal tools. This story ended with my land restored. A neighbor who understood very clearly where the line is and a corner of my yard that now has a beautiful little shed on it, built by a licensed contractor. It sits exactly where it was always supposed to be. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, know your property line, hire a surveyor, and check the permit database. File the complaint, keep every record, and whatever you do, don't let them normalize ignoring your rights. The city has teeth. Use them. If this video helped you, share this video immediately. Hit subscribe for a new HO neighbor story every single week. Drop your own neighbor war in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you for tuning in to HO Neighbor. Subscribe to HO Neighbor for more.